Hello, welcome to the Varsity Sports Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network. Tom Nieman along with Jason Andera and talking about girls Class B in South Dakota. Jason, Ethan, Warner, some of these teams that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. What's your thought on girls Class B going into this season?
Well, my thought is that there are a lot of teams that have a lot of talent returning, and that's always huge in Class B. And the other thing in Class B you look for is depth. And the teams that have the depth are the ones that usually make the run. Now, last year, Castlewood didn't have very much depth. They pretty much played 6 players the whole season.
So what is your point?
My point is I'm not always right. And things will change once in a while. But usually the teams that have good depth in Class B are the ones that can make a deep run. And I like Warner a lot.
All right, Castlewood's going to be in the top 5. We'll take a look at the media poll here in a second, but you talked to head coach Tom Young a little bit.
Tom Young of Ethan got the #1 ranking in the first preseason poll and the media poll, and we caught up with Ethan.
You know, I really think that after last year, I think that's a place where we really need to improve in overall defensively, and that's been our focus so far these first 3 days, and it's going to be our focus through the entire year.
We came right back into it. Like when we started practice, it wasn't even like it ended last year. It's like we just rolled right into it. Like it didn't feel any different.
We have a lot of the experience back, so just with them, all the starters coming back and everything, it'll definitely just be nice so that they can just jump right in and know what to do in the game and just keep building off the last year.
Right back in, man.
Right back in.
Okay, here's the media poll, by the way, to start the season, and a little difference of opinion on who should be #1 going in here. But Ethan goes in #1, Warner, Castlewood, the defending state champs, Trip Delmont Armor, and Avon, who had 20 wins last year.
Yeah, I think
again, Castlewood, the defending state champs. Talk about the run that Ethan has been on in the last 4 years.
Yeah, okay, so Tom Young was the coach of Mitchell Christian back when his daughter Jill Young set all kinds of state records for scoring. And of course, they were dominant in their years when he was the coach, and then took off a few years, and now he's back coaching for Ethan. And what have they done in the last 4 years? They finished 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at state in the last 4 seasons. How hard is that for a team that hadn't made the state tournament? I think it was 40 years before that since they've even made a state tournament, and now have made it 4 consecutive years. What an accomplishment that this Rustler team has been on.
Ethan was 4th last year in the state tournament. They've got all 5 starters coming back.
They had no seniors
from that team.
They had no seniors on last year's roster.
That's
so
why they're #1.
That's why us media types, you just look at a roster, everybody's back from a team that made it to state. But really, they've got great players. And Carly Gustafson and Jessica Barcher's a good player. We heard from Allie Hone right there, who's Callie Hone, who can do a great job putting the ball in the hoop. And Cameron Logan, another player who's young and up and coming, who will supply a lot of offense for this team as well. And they really make their team on defense. Tom Young, of course, had to bring up defense because that's all they work on, and that's why such a huge change in this program over the last 4 years.
Warner, 22 wins last year. Castlewood, defending state champs. Trip Delmont Armor won 22 games. They finished 3rd as well. So a lot of the usual suspects again here in Class B. What about Avon?
Well, Avon is a team that a lot of people, I didn't vote Avon in the top 5. They have one great player back in Lauren Sees, who is a great player going on to play at Augie next year. But overall team-wise, I think there's a lot of other teams to talk about. But the one I want to talk about before we move on to those other teams is Warner. This is the team that won the state volleyball title, and a lot of those same players play basketball. Stuart Boley has had this same group of players now for about the 3rd year. They've been playing since they were sophomores, and this senior class is dynamic. Lori Rogers, one of the best individual talents in Class B. Always helps to have a player like Lori Rogers that you can give the ball to, going to Northern State next year. Love this Warner team. That's the team I gave a #1 vote to in the poll.
All right, and as you said, you look around at some of the other teams that have something coming back as well. What about Sully Buttes? Finished 3rd last year.
Yeah, you can never discount Sully Buttes. Of course, we've had some great players come through there. This year, maybe not the name power, but of course, great defense, great coaching like they always have. Lauren Whitler, one of the top players back for them, will supply some offense for them. But they're going to dip down just a little bit from where they're used to being in that top 5.
White River wasn't great last year, but they got 5 seniors coming back. Could be good. Corsica Stickney.
That's the team I like.
Corsica Stickney, why?
That team, this is the next team that you're going to see for the next 3 or 4 years kind of stay the same. They played a lot of 8th graders and 9th graders who are already tall and have good length, great athleticism, and they're just going to get better and better. They're going to be one of the dominant teams here, probably not this year, but maybe next year. But I think they could make an appearance in the top 5 throughout this season.
One senior at Corsica Stickney.
Menning, yeah.
Courtney Menning, but 18 wins last year, and all those players coming
really
back
good
as well. So, and then Irene Wakanda, 20 games last year. They didn't make the state tournament, but 20 wins for Irene Wakanda, and they've got a lot of talent that we've seen as well. 1
game away from the state tournament. Yep, they lose one of their top scorers, but we all know that this team is loaded. They've got 3 O'Malleys if you count the coaching staff, 2 O'Malleys on the court, and Nora is probably one of the better O'Malleys coming up through the system. So yeah, they're going to have a lot of good players. And Shannon Sokolowski has been, I think, on this team for about 5 years, and she's just a great athlete leading the way.
All right. And just take one more look up here. This is about
TDA.
We've looked at all the other classes so far, and none of the voting has been spread out as much as this has.
Yeah, people are not sure who's ready to take that. I mean, people kind of assume that Castlewood maybe will have a tough time repeating. They lost 3 starters and only have 2 players back. One of those players has an injury, so won't be able to play the basketball season. So I think this is one of those wide open classes that, and I think TDA is a team we have to talk about with Madeline Reinert. Had a great season last year. I think they're just gearing up for a title run this year as well.
Trip Delmont Armor, TDA.
Yep.
What were they in football, do you remember?
TDA, AC, DC. So they cut the AC and the DC out, Dakota Christian and Andy Central, but still have the Trip Delmont and the Armor.
Opening weekend is this weekend in Girls Class B. What's one big game you're looking at?
Well, Ethan, it comes out as the #1 team. They get a tough game right away against the runner-up from last year, Hanson. You know, Jim Bridge always brings a good team back. They lost a ton of seniors, but they upset Ethan right off the bat last year, and they're going to try to do the same this year. And then the game I'm looking forward to next Tuesday, Avon taking on Corsica Stickney. We'll get to see that senior leadership from Lauren Seas, and we'll get to see those youngsters from Corsica Stickney and see how quickly they advance to being one of the top teams in the state.
All right, and you've got all the previews on your blog on midcosportsnetwork.com, midcosn.com.
Yep, you can check it out, and I always like to engage in a little conversation. I get to as many Class B games as I can, but sometimes you guys actually see more games than I do, so love getting your input and feedback.
All right, we'll be back here next week once the season gets started in Girls Class B basketball in South Dakota.
Thanks, Tom.
Good work, buddy.